And your favorite color?
Yeah, that's right. And what do you want for Christmas?
I like that.
Okay. Good morning. It's 8:02 on Tuesday, December 17th, 2024, and I will call the SELCO Commission meeting for December to order. First item on the agenda is to review and consider approval of November 2024 bill schedules and warrants. Do we have any comments, corrections, inputs?
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay, on the first page, there's a communications tester for over $100,000. Is that a piece of equipment, or is that,
Communication tester.
Which company?
Hold on.
it's, Itron?
Oh.
That's part of our AMI meter stuff.
Okay.
So I don't think it's, the description is limited, but that's the AMI meter rollout
Okay.
stuff.
And who are you?
Oh, yeah.
Jim Zacco.
Christmas present?
Yeah. Favorite color? Okay. Any other comments or questions on the warrants? If not, do we have a motion to accept the November 2024 bill schedules and warrants?
Motion.
I wasn't here, so I can't.
Okay.
So moved.
So, okay,
Second?
second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
So who signs these now for
The warrants and schedule you can sign, you just can't sign the minutes.
the minutes? Yeah, somebody will
Okay.
sign them.
The next item on the agenda is meeting minutes of November 19th, 2024. Are there any comments or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept the meeting minutes of November 19th,
So moved.
24? Okay, do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The next item is what we've all been waiting for, and especially the young lady who's ready to present, is the electric customer survey results with Great Blue Research. And we'll turn that over to you. We want to make an introduction, or this one, or-
Sure.
Okay,
Yep, so here we have our customer satisfaction study results with Great Blue. I'm sure Great Blue can, introduce themselves, but they've been doing municipal light plant as well as many other customer surveys for a long time, and so they are no stranger to this process, and we're happy to turn it over to them to discuss our latest findings.
great. Young lady, the floor is yours.
Sorry, looks like my screen sharing's not working. I just have to quit and rejoin really quickly. So just one moment.
Okay. And while you're doing that, this is going to be specifically on the electric customer
Electric,
survey, correct?
yes.
We will
Was
have
there a-
another-
was
we
there
will
a
have another
cable side?
briefing on cable.
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering on the timing of the cable side, if it was post-streaming conversion or pre-streaming conversion.
Yeah, it will be post.
Okay, great.
We typically separate the two.
Okay. Oh, so it'll be for a review period post-streaming conversion.
Yes.
Let's see if this one does the trick. There we go.
There we go.
All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. Hi everyone, my name is Catherine. I think I've met most of you before for a couple of our previous surveys together, but I am one of the project managers at Great Blue, and I'm here with my colleague Sophia, who is this is her
Two
first.
things. One, we can't hear you very well. And secondly, if you can go to projection on your presentation, we're seeing all your notes and everything. We just want to see the slides.
Let's see here. How about this?
Great.
There you go.
Perfect. All right, great. So I am with my colleague Sophia, who is one of our project assistants here at Great Blue. That was one of our main point of contacts for this survey as well. So we are going to be co-presenting today. I'm happy to take you through some very positive customer satisfaction results of this year's electric survey. I'm just going to skip ahead to our project overview. So for those of you who don't know, we conduct this customer satisfaction survey every couple of years. And really the goal is to get kind of a holistic overview of where electric customer satisfaction ratings are. We have some organizational characteristics. We'll go over it with you, customer service personnel, looking at some different communication platforms and overall satisfaction with those, such as Smart Hub, looking at outage restoration and response times, anticipated electrification investments, so looking at electric vehicles and heat pumps and intended plans to invest in both of those. We look at overall awareness of different rebates and loan programs, awareness and interest in time of use rates, and then lastly, awareness and interest in the Connected Homes program. Our research methodology snapshot. This year was our first year that we did a full digital survey. We ended up with 535 completed surveys, which is a lot higher than what we had last time we did the survey in 2021. We had about 370 completed surveys, so we were really excited to see the improved response rate this time around. Our margin of error is plus or minus 4.1%, which essentially means that if we were going to conduct this survey another 100 times, 95 times out of 100, those results would come back somewhere within plus or minus 4.1 percentage points of the results that we're going to share with you today. And we conducted this year's survey in the fall, basically throughout the month of October into early November, so folks had plenty of time to complete the survey. And this page is our respondent snapshot, so really just highlighting the demographic profile of the respondents that we captured in the survey. This year, looking at age, we definitely did lean a little bit older, had more folks in the 55 and older category compared to those 55 and under. And likewise, we had a lot more folks who have been in the community for a lot longer, so 20 plus years was the vast majority of folks. Household income, as you can see, was pretty evenly spread across the board. We did have a lot of people say prefer not to say, which is very normal for a question like household income. And then renters and owners, we had almost 90% of the respondents were homeowners compared to about 10% were renters. And then again, most of those folks were in single family homes. And then as far as heating source goes, we had a little over half were had a gas heating source, about a quarter were oil, and then about 15% were electric. This is just a guide to our footnotes. We're going to go over all of this as we get into the presentation. So I just want to take us right into our key study findings. Again, this page is really just kind of the high level overview findings. If you only have a couple moments to look at the report, we recommend going to this page, but we will just take you into the more visually appealing slides, and I will pass things over to Sophia, who is going to run through a couple slides for you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine. And good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Awesome. So I'll just go ahead and dive right into it. First, we're just getting into the organizational characteristics. We asked customers 6 organizational characteristics to rate SELCO on a scale of 1 to 10. And here in this chart, you can see that we aggregated the ratings of 7 to 10 to get this kind of overview of positive ratings among customers. And when looking at SELCO's ratings in 2024, we saw that 4 out of 6 organizational characteristics, including the average of all positive ratings, did significantly increase compared to 2021. And this is going to be a common theme that you'll see throughout the report, as we did get pretty good ratings this time around. But we saw that 96.6% of customers provided positive ratings for SELCO's reliable service. Although that wasn't a significant increase, that was the highest positive rating out of all of these characteristics, followed by honesty and integrity and SELCO's community service that significantly increased this time around. And then next, we're going to get into SELCO's NP plus S score. This time we saw that SELCO had an NPS net positive score of 96.2%, which was 11.8 percentage points higher than the national average that we see. And then when you break it down, looking at customers who identified themselves as either a satisfied, loyal, or advocate customer, we saw this time around that 2/5 of customers actually identified themselves as advocates of SELCO, which was significantly more than in 2021. So while you see that decrease of satisfied customers, we saw that those satisfied customers actually ended up advocating for SELCO and identifying themselves as a loyal customer as well. And then next, we're going into the contact resolution. So we asked customers that had a contact with a SELCO representative how satisfied they were with that contact. And as you can see, we saw that over 95% of customers indicated that they were either very or somewhat satisfied. And this was significantly higher than that national average as well. And then when looking at the frequency of contact, we saw that nearly 3/4 of respondents reported that SELCO typically takes care of things the first time when they're contacting them. And then getting into the satisfaction with pricing and some of customers' priorities, we saw that with pricing, 2/3 of customers believe that the prices that they pay SELCO for electricity are actually lower than surrounding towns, which was also a significant increase from those who indicated the same in 2021. And then when looking at customers' electric service priorities, we asked customers to rank these 4 priorities on a scale of 1 to 4. And we saw that nearly 1/2 of customers prioritize reliability, followed by that 43.7% who prioritize the cost of electricity, whereas customers placed less of a priority on the reduction of carbon in the electric portfolio, followed by community involvement. And then when looking at outage restoration, we asked customers of their perceptions of the time to restore power, and we saw that almost 100% of customers who did have a power outage in 2024 were actually found the time to restore power very or somewhat acceptable. And we also saw that 37.4% didn't have an outage at all this year, which was great news in itself. And then when we broke it out by homeowners and renters, we saw that significantly more homeowners reported the time to restore power as very acceptable compared to renters.
And just to put this in perspective too, usually when we ask this question to a lot of other public power utilities, the rate of, those who find power restoration times acceptable is somewhere within maybe 80 to 85%. So to see this number being 99% and only a handful of customers not finding it acceptable is really, really positive. And it just reflects in that, high reliability rates and high ratings across the board for customer satisfaction.
Yeah, definitely. And then here we took a closer look at some communication channels and those that customers found the most valuable. In this chart, you can see that we combined the ratings of very and somewhat valuable when it comes to these 5 communication channels. So we saw that over 80% of customers actually found SELCO's website to be of value, followed by bill inserts and newsletters and direct mail. And then all 3 of these characteristics significantly increased in value compared to 2021. And then we also broke it out by age as well. So when looking at the social media and Smart Hub communication channels, we saw that significantly more customers under 55 years of age would place value on those communication channels compared to those 55 and older.
And again, when we're looking at things like Smart Hub and social media towards the bottom, where you see the lower ratings for those two, a lot of these folks give ratings of don't know, unsure. So it's not so much that they don't find your social media valuable. It's just, folks who aren't currently following you on social media, which same goes for Smart Hub. What we'll see in a couple slides is there's a lot of opportunities to engage with folks more through digital communication through these types of platforms. So where you see lower ratings for value, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't find the value, they're just not necessarily using the platform.
Yes, exactly. And then, as we mentioned, we also took a closer look at customers' perceptions and satisfaction with the Smart Hub mobile application. So here we saw that over 3/5 of customers are aware of the Smart Hub mobile application, while like a quarter are still not at all aware. But of those customers, we saw that 41.3% of those customers had used the Smart Hub mobile application. And then when looking at those customers specifically, we asked their satisfaction with a couple of characteristics of the app. And we saw that over 3/4 of customers provided positive ratings for the ease of understanding content on the Smart Hub app and also the ease of navigating the Smart Hub app. While a little bit of less customers, still a pretty good amount, 66.5%, but less customers place satisfaction on delivering and communicating about available programs and services on the Smart Hub app. And then here we look at the customer's perception of the bill. So we saw that 86.5% found their electric bill as either very or somewhat easy to understand in terms of their ability to understand charges and outstanding balances and account status. And then for programs and services, we broke out some financial assistance programs and loan programs. So when looking at customers' awareness of these programs, we saw that 2/3 of customers were either very or somewhat aware of the financial and fuel assistance programs that SELCO helps customers access. And that was followed by over 2/5 of customers who were aware of the 0% loan program SELCO offers for energy efficiency upgrades. So we saw that there was a little less awareness on this loan program, with 34.2% saying that they were very unaware of it.
Great. And kind of going into programs and services in a little bit more depth, we ask a general question about just overall awareness of any programs and rebates that are offered by SELCO. And similar to what we just saw on the past slide, about 2/3 of customers reported being aware of any programs and services that SELCO offers. And that actually is a really high rating. We find a lot of times with these surveys that usually about 40-ish% of customers are aware of any of the rebates that are offered. And this is asking about any of them. But we find that there's just a lot of customers out there that don't take the time to go and look for this information themselves. So they're only really aware when they're receiving direct communication about it. So seeing 2/3 are aware is already really, really great. Obviously still room for improvement. We see that, of all of the customers in the survey, a little over a third, so 37.2% have actually gone and applied for a rebate or incentive. So again, while awareness is pretty high, there are definitely fewer customers who are actually applying for the rebates. But again, that's typical to see. Obviously, as you know, rebates are very specific to a certain project that they may be working on, and there's obviously general barriers that folks have to making certain investments at their home at certain points. So, it's not an alarming number, but it's definitely an opportunity. And we look at the rebate process as a whole. Overall satisfaction with the process is really high, 77.9%. We also saw very positive ratings for the length of time to complete the application, the overall process of applying for these incentives and rebates, and then for looking for information about incentive and rebate programs. So really, really positive findings here, and really nothing here that calls out to us as a red flag as far as the rebate process goes. So looking at connected homes specifically, and we added these questions into the survey back in 2021 when this program was new, and awareness was already pretty high. It was already 21.2%. And again, when it's a new program, it's really positive to see that many people already being aware of it. And awareness has gone up a little bit over the past couple of years. So currently 25.6% are either very or moderately aware of connected homes. We did see a pretty big difference based on age, which I'm sure is expected. Those folks under 55, 39% were aware of the Connected Homes program, so about 2/5 of those customers, compared to about 21.7% of those 55 and older. And we saw a difference too based on interest level. Overall interest, there's definitely interest in Connected Homes. Really, as you'll see on the next page, it's contingent on the different technologies that people already have at their home. But overall, interest has remained pretty consistent. 45.1% are interested in enrolling in Connected Homes in the future. And here we actually saw a difference based on how long folks have lived in Shrewsbury. So those who have been in the community for 20 years or fewer were a lot more interested in exploring Connected Homes compared to those who are longer tenured residents, which was really interesting to see. Some of that has to do with those who are been in the community for less time are probably younger customers too, so they're already more aware and invested in these types of technologies than those who have been in the community for a while. And then on the note of connected homes, we looked at, what technologies folks already have that will qualify them for enrollment in connected homes. The biggest thing here is that there's a lot of customers that don't have these technologies. So it's something where if they chose to enroll, they'd have to actually purchase the technology first. So that's over half of customers, but we did see almost a quarter, 21.9% have Wi-Fi thermostats already. And we also saw that there was a big difference based on age as far as who has the qualifying technology. So significantly fewer customers 55 and older have any smart devices that qualify for enrollment compared to those under 55. Those under 55, almost 80% have some sort of technology that would qualify them for enrollment in connected homes, which really shows where the biggest opportunity is. It's primarily with younger customers who are, perhaps already have this technology, and it would be a little bit easier for them to actually enroll in the program. And then looking at interest and time of use rates, and we've asked similar questions like this in the past just to gauge kind of overall awareness and understanding of time of use rates as a concept, and then overall interest level in SELCO exploring time of use rates down the road. So overall this year, over half of customers said that they're very or somewhat familiar with time of use rates. Looking kind of at, we've asked these questions nationally a lot to public power customers across the country, and usually it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 45% are familiar. So that is a little bit above average, but obviously, again, still room to educate and grow that number. And then when you look at interest and time of use rates as a program and the potential for SELCO to roll out a time of use rate program, over 3/5, so 63.7% were interested in potentially enrolling in this program in the future. We actually saw that a lot more customers 55 and older were interested in enrolling, 69.4% compared to those under 55, which I was a little bit surprised to see. But it is an interesting takeaway to note kind of, who to target communications to and which folks perhaps are more educated about what a time of use rate program really means and what you would have to do as a homeowner to really take advantage of a time of use rate program. And then looking at awareness and barriers to installing heat pumps. So we first of all look at overall awareness of SELCO's heat pump rebate. This was a really high number. Almost 3/5 are aware of SELCO's rebates for purchasing and installing heat pumps at your home. Again, as I mentioned earlier, usually when we're looking at program awareness, roughly 40% is definitely a positive number for awareness of a program. So seeing this number being almost 20 percentage points above that is really great. Obviously we do still have a lot of folks who aren't aware of it, but this is something that you've obviously done a great deal of communication about, and people know that it's an offering, depending down the road if they're actually planning on investing. And then when we look at the barriers to installing heat pumps, these are pretty typical to see as the top barriers. Obviously, upfront project cost. This is a significant investment that people would be making, so that's really the predominant barrier. And the second one is really an education component, not knowing enough about heat pumps. So it really shows that it's not so much that people aren't aware that SELCO has these offerings and these rebates surrounding heat pumps. It's just not knowing much about the technology itself, if it's going to be beneficial for their home, all of the information that's really important to know. So there's kind of an educational component just about the technology itself. And when we look at different sources of generation, we asked this question last year. We wanted to look at, the current perceptions of each of these generation sources. And I think we would expect to see these ratings. Hydropower is actually viewed as the most favorable of all the generation sources, followed by solar and wind. Nuclear has the lowest favorability ratings, and I think that makes sense. I think there's still a lot of general consumers who hear nuclear and they panic, and they don't understand everything that goes into that as a generation source and what that really means. So there's definitely some areas to kind of educate the public in what these investments would really look like and what positive contributions they make as generation sources. So looking at electric vehicles, we look at the likelihood to purchase an electric vehicle, and this was really interesting to me. The overall likelihood to buy an electric vehicle, and this is looking as your next vehicle is going to be an electric vehicle, did decrease significantly compared to what we saw in 2021 by about 20 percentage points. So about a third of customers are likely to buy an electric vehicle as their next car, which is still a high frequency compared to what we see nationally. But that number was really high back in 2021. So it's come back down to more of what we're seeing, more similar to what we're seeing nationally. There's a lot more folks who aren't likely at all to buy an electric vehicle next. And no surprise here, we do see a big difference based on age. Those under 55 are a lot more likely to buy an electric vehicle next compared to those 55 and older. And the barriers to purchasing an electric vehicle, these are really in line with what we see nationally as the top barriers to investing in electric vehicles. Limited range is, one of the top concerns that we see year after year. Also, cost is still always going to be a barrier because there's just not as many, low end or medium end electric vehicle options out there that people are really aware of yet. And then the availability of recharging stations. A lot of folks we're finding don't know where their nearest electric vehicle charging stations are. They don't know how many there are, how that compares to gas stations, things like that. So there's still obviously a lot of room to kind of educate consumers and kind of, encourage folks to think of, mitigate these barriers and think of the positive aspects of electric vehicles too. And then the importance of community ownership. So really high ratings here. And we like asking these questions mostly because we oftentimes find that when folks are more aware that their utility is community owned, they tend to see more of the benefits of that ownership model, and their satisfaction with the utility tends to be a lot higher. And that was exactly the case in what happened with this survey. So 93.6% were aware that SELCO is community owned. Just to put that in perspective, and this is going to seem like a wild number, but when we asked this question nationally, When we asked this question last year, that number was 44% nationwide, customers who actually know that they're a customer of a community-owned utility. So 93.6% is extremely high. Obviously, a testament to all the work that you do to educate the public and develop relationships in the community to ensure customers know all about you and what that ownership structure really means. And you can see this in the overall importance of community ownership. 94.7% feel it's important that SELCO is a community-owned municipal utility. So it shows that folks are really seeing all the benefits of this ownership structure, and that's reflected in the high satisfaction ratings that we saw at the beginning of the presentation. And then these are some characteristics that really align well with what a community-owned utility means and the value they bring to the community. And so we ask how strongly customers agree with each of these different statements. And as you can see, over 9 out of 10 agreed with all statements, that SELCO really embodies all of these different statements about community-owned utilities. But the highest ratings were for providing reliable service and responding quickly to outages and representing the community interests, which also saw significant ratings compared to what we saw in 2021. So, not only are people aware of what this means, but they also feel like SELCO is really embodying these characteristics. And that takes us to our considerations. So we have 2 brief ones to go over, and they really have a lot to do with communication. So one thing that, Sophia and I both talked about is enhancing awareness and participation in emerging programs. There's a lot of programs and rebates that folks are very aware of and familiar with. There's other ones that there's lower awareness, but there's a lot of opportunities. So one that really stuck out to us was Connected Homes, where, awareness has only increased by about 4 percentage points over the past 3 years. There's definitely still room to grow education. And what we saw is there's a lot of interest in these offerings, especially among younger customers. So that really becomes a good target audience. There's also, room to educate customers about time of use rates, especially if that's something that you all are exploring in the future, just to get, ensure that adoption is really successful when and if you do roll that out. The more awareness and the more familiar folks are with that rate structure, the more likely they'll be to, see the benefits of it, but also understand how to take advantage of that kind of a program if they do choose to enroll. And then lastly, looking at communication and digital engagement channels, like we talked about earlier, when it comes to things like social media and the Smart Hub platform, where we saw lower ratings for the value of those platforms, it really meant that a lot of folks weren't using those platforms already. And we see the social media challenge with basically every single utility we work with is always trying to get more customers to engage with them on social media. And it can be really tough because a lot of times customers don't think of engaging with their utility on social media unless it's an outage, for example. So it's all about finding those ways to engage with customers when it's not an emergency situation and when you can just have that positive relationship online. Especially when we look at younger customers, we saw those folks place a lot more value on things like social media and Smart Hub moving forward. And especially when it comes to a Smart Hub platform, we want to make sure that folks are using Smart Hub for all of its capacities so they understand how to, use it as a tool to find more information about programs and services, and they aren't just using it as, a transactional like bill payment type of platform. So there's definitely room to kind of expand, communication and digital engagement and make sure that folks are engaging with you on, the channels that you already have, especially those younger audiences. And that takes us through to the end. These are the folks from the Great Blue team who had a hand in putting this this year's survey and report together. But at this point, I'll stop sharing my screen, and I think I can stop sharing my screen. There we go. And open it up to any questions that you all have.
Great. Anybody questions, comments?
I have an observation with I guess maybe a question tied to it. Big difference, obviously, between 24 and 21. I wonder how much of it is related to, 21, COVID, everybody's home. There seemed to be in some of the earlier slides, some things that would sort of track with the early days of everyone getting home, trying to use their internet, some of the frustrations that sort of occurred because there's just a vast improvement. And I don't know, other than that, how much the world has changed over those 3 years, and just curious if there's any thoughts related to those general trends.
Yeah, I'll just speak to that because we've seen that same trend with a lot of utilities, and we've encouraged utilities to really think of 21 and 22 as being kind of a new benchmark, because that's really when we started to go into more digital surveys and this new kind of way of surveying folks. But yeah, that we saw significantly lower ratings during those COVID years, mostly because of just general frustration with the world, and a lot of people taking it out in their surveys, but also a lot of people looking to their utilities for assistance when it comes to things like paying their bills. There were a lot of folks that just couldn't, they were just struggling to get by day to day. And so that has a significant impact on just kind of overall satisfaction. I will say the other thing that Sophia pointed out earlier is that we had a lot more people who identified as being advocates of SELCO, and a lot of people who have been in the community for longer. So those folks are likely going to have more positive perceptions and sentiments, obviously, because they're just more engaged. We do tend to find that younger, less tenured residents don't necessarily have as positive a perception. We still got their feedback, and that was definitely heard loud and clear, especially when it came to communication. But we did find that there's definitely been shifts over the past couple of years as far as satisfaction overall. It's not just privy to SELCO, but there's definitely differences based on age. And I will say, just touching on communication briefly too, we saw a lot of people in 21 and 22 being kind of burned out with communication overload. A lot of folks working from home, being on things like social media, the internet in general, a lot more than they used to be, and so and being presented with a lot more information than they used to be too. And so I think that takes a toll, certainly. And I think that, we're somewhat out of that period where people are, obviously out in the community a lot more. And they're also seeing, you out in the community a lot more too. So I think that has, brought about a little bit more of a positive sentiment as well.
Okay.
Can I add a little more?
Sure,
color?
yes, sir.
And if I may add some of that I don't think our Great Blue folks might realize is a big difference from 2021 is we implemented the new NISC system, which introduced Smart Hub, which allowed us to engage with customers more directly. It gave us the messaging system. It gave us a clearer bill presentment, which I think we see in the survey results. We used the 2020 satisfaction survey results to also make some staffing adjustments, right? We have some excellent employees that we didn't have in 2021 with Val and Olivia, supplemented, Rick's involvement in this. So we've been adapting the organization both technologically as well as with our staffing to keep up with the changing of society and the expectations they have for us.
Great.
Anyone else? No? Well, it's good news on the electric side.
Very good, yeah.
Yeah, definitely
When
positive.
we will see you for cable
Yeah.
and internet. and so that's what,
Yeah.
another month or two?
I would have to defer to our projected timeline on that to Becca and Rick. What are you thinking for that?
Next year.
Yeah, well, that's in
2025, yeah.
2 weeks.
Maybe a spring one.
Oh, okay,
Ah.
okay. Okay.
One last observation, a bullet point that I thought was interesting. 63.9% of customers believe the prices they pay SELCO for electricity are lower than those of surrounding towns. We obviously know that. That is like one of the hallmarks of
Yeah.
SELCO.
Should be higher even.
Yeah, that was my thing. There's 37% of people that don't recognize, go
Yeah.
one town over, you're almost.
Yeah,
being
go to
public.
Worcester and double your,
Yeah.
double your fun, double your
Right.
pleasure, and double your
That's
pay.
significant.
It's actually at, we're pushing triple.
Triple now, yeah.
Wow. It's great.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
you're very
Appreciate you
welcome.
and your
Thank
staff
you.
for
Thank you.
joining us this morning so early.
Absolutely.
You're far more awake than we are. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, with that said, we have next on the agenda, a general manager's highlights. I turn it over to you, sir.
All right, thank you. So I think a nice segue from what we just heard into the legislative bits section of the highlights. I just wanted to call attention to some local action in addition to the normal highlights. So I believe we sent an email to the group, maybe a week or so ago now, maybe a week and a half, related to this Massachusetts Building Decarbonization Clearinghouse idea. So we've been closely following several bits of legislation which you know, there's always proposals out there that flirt with the line of the local, you know, the governance of municipal light plants, the local control, the authorities and statutory responsibilities that Mass law grants all municipal light plants across Massachusetts. One of which we feel, you know, there's varying degrees of you know, overreach, I guess is the word I'll choose. This one is probably one of the most concerning, and so we've had a number of meetings about this where, with everything we just heard, one of the major proposals is to wrap essentially municipal light plant energy programs in with a clearinghouse, which was essentially Mass Save. And so what the proposal is looking to do essentially is you know, remove the connected homes programs, you know, and add what we think would be a 30% rate increase for reduction in benefits. And so one of the things that I mentioned this is we continue to provide feedback on a variety of proposed legislative actions. This one is one that I bring forward, and I believe most of the 41 in Massachusetts are bringing forward as something that we feel strongly enough that this can't proceed. Like, this is against the public interest in a variety of, for a variety of reasons and in a variety of ways. And what we just saw, you know, my whole theme of feedback has been, you know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that our data shows our model is working the best. And so, and rather than rolling us into a model that clearly is not working great, you know, I personally pay 36 cents a kilowatt hour for rates and reliability that are far lower than SELCO. The alternative is they should be reaching out to us, looking at this data. I'd be glad to send them this report and say, we're here to help you. If you'd like to expand our model more widely in the public interest to get rates from 36 cents to 13 and change, we're here to help. If you like, you know, customer satisfaction ratings that are 96, 97% instead of 60%, we're here to help you. But to, you know, propose a change that would reverse that it makes no sense. And so I mentioned that because there's, you know, we sent out the email, we've sent letters to our legislators. It's just more of an awareness that we're asking to bring forward to.
What are the chances we get swallowed up in all of this stuff?
Well, we're going to do everything we can to not let that happen. And you know, up to the idea was brought up at a group meeting yesterday. We're not at this point, I guess I should say the caveat, you know, for the conversation, but, you know, one community said, you know, they have 30,000 residents, 30,000 phone calls to their state legislators. You know, we will bring 40,000 phone calls. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And so, you know, we're escalating. You've seen it, you know, if you look through the history of municipal light plants over the 100 years, there's an ebb and flow of legislative action and court cases and stuff. And so you never want to see it go that far. But, you know, we're just making sure we're prepared to act and preserve what we have, and then go further to say we're happy to help you achieve our collective goals in a way that's better for the public interest. And our data shows that we have the recipe for that. So that's just more context for what's happening there.
Before we get off the subject, because this is a personal one for me as well. You noted historically there has been numerous pieces of legislation over the years to roll municipalities into the Mass Save program that have been thwarted over time. what's different now? What are you seeing different now than what has been on the table in the past?
Great.
Because like legislative action is required. Do they see a window where administrative action could do this?
That's what it seems to me.
Yeah.
That's
Which
why.
is the scary part.
The scary part is it doesn't affect the legislation only tangentially. They have to back at these administrative boards and different committees that are going to set things up that don't have to be voted on.
Yeah.
Because the autonomy of the municipal framework is protected under statute. That's why I wonder like what the legal window is to.
So that's a great question. I will say that has been the traditional response from the municipal light plant group. And I think I would say that it's the challenge is now folks in certain positions just simply saying, well, that's not true. And so now that goes to the next level is, okay, if you have us collectively presenting our legal case, that we have for decades, and then another group that says, we don't think that's true. We'll just do what we want. That's where we're being mindful of what's the next level of escalation to bring that to demonstrate that's not the case. And then there's the third part, which has been suggested in some of these public information sessions, which is, okay, well, I guess if that's true and you do prove that the legal construct doesn't allow us to do this, well, we're the legislature, we'll just change the laws.
Yeah.
And so that's the further, next line of defense to say, oh, well, you can change Chapter 164, you can change Chapter 775. And so that goes to my whole point about, I think it would be, 100% against the public interest to do things like that. So we have to take a close eye, or keep a close eye on making sure what we're trying to do is actually advancing the public good as opposed to spinning our wheels in the mud.
Doesn't this just go hand in hand with what we were talking about last month? About how Mass Saves is just costing them more money? So how do they reduce the cost for everybody else by expanding the pool, right?
Exactly, and if all of our costs, if you increase Wild Municipal Light Plants, the 41 of us, are maybe 11 to 13% of overall load in the state, I mean, increase our rates 30% and funnel that all to a Mass Save program. I mean, that's an injection of funding that they'd be looking for.
So
With a system at Mass Save that's failed twice, they've got different people have taken over, like this past summer, people still on TV. Every time you turn the news on, somebody hasn't gotten a rebate in 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, right.
Whereas ours is in 6 to 7 hours to a day or two.
yeah.
And we were much more efficient. And then my biggest take on this thing is I just see it as a land grab of non-municipally owned companies increasing their revenues based on what they get us, and then they show their stockholders that, and then they pay a huge dividend to their stockholders, and the only one that makes out on this is people who have absolutely no use of it. It ends up that the public in Shrewsbury, as an example, monies that we have to give forward go to some stockholder rather than getting any benefit at all from this whole program. That's why I know when there was a call for inputs, that was the kind of the comments that I made back to the folks as to whether we carry any weight on that as an individual. We'll see, but yeah, I'm totally against this whole idea.
I'm wildly against it. I was
Well,
a
who'd be
former.
for it?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you who would be for it.
Well,
Well,
people not living in this town.
Yeah, if I'm the company, one of the presidents or the CEO of a utility that is not municipally owned and is kowtowing to stockholders rather than the general public and can pass through any of these costs, then I'm all for it. And that's what I'm against. Totally against what we've been here as a municipally owned
I
department.
agree more.
And yes,
Jim Zacco, just to add one more point, if you increase the cost of our rates, what does that do for private companies, right? It brings us more in line with them, and it makes our business model look less efficient. And now you have an argument to take away our business model, right? Today, our business model is so much stronger than these IOUs because, you know, I had a friend that moved up from Connecticut, moved to a house 3 times the size, a pool, everything, got his second electric bill, called me up, and he was almost crying. He's like, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm paying less than I was down there. They're looking to break us that way, right? Because right now we're making them look bad. So this is just another tool to help them make us look bad. And nobody will understand it from a end user, you know, the resident perspective. You can confuse and muddle those things, those concepts.
Well, I think our elected officials are being made aware of the issue, because I think if, in fact, Shrewsbury were to have to increase rates based on something like this, that both the state senator and state representative would be pretty well held hostage by virtue of the fact that how did you allow this to occur on your watch?
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about our elected officials, like you say. I think they will do the right thing for sure. It's the inner workings of the building, and this is the whole dynamic of it. Are they going to try to move forward administratively is the most concerning thing. I think that's the thing we got to really drill down on. I'd be happy to spend some time being involved if there's, advocacy piece on the Hill, education moments.
Shouldn't they focus on the Mass Save program and the inefficiencies there versus trying to?
The only reason
You want to save money, stop Mass Save.
Yeah. Because if you look at the history of Mass Save, right? And I was a Mass Save provider many years ago and fought against it forever because of the inefficiencies of it, because of what it does to even the installers. And it's worked itself out a little bit in that regard over time. But when you look at what it started off with, they were getting all the savings from screwing in light bulbs. Then it was move on to, the next cheapest thing, insulation in the walls, right? And as the low-hanging fruit has gotten chipped off, we've run around for a decade saying Massachusetts is the #1 energy efficiency, because we spend so much money, and that is actually one of the metrics, the dollars you spend on it. We can champion ourselves as the greatest energy efficiency state in the country. It was, I guess I'm guilty of it because when I was at EEA, you would tout it. However, at the same time, it is wildly inefficient. And as time goes on, it will become less efficient because you've plucked all the low-hanging fruit. You've screwed out all the, it was CFLs, then it's LEDs, and okay, we can go back and replace the bulbs that we already replaced once. That's what's happening. And look, there is merit to a lot of what they do. A home with no insulation makes a ton of sense. Let's get insulation into it. But I'm just more broadly saying, when you look at the cost to do one unit in one house, to fully do it, to do that deep energy retrofit, or move towards a deep energy retrofit, it is a homeowner who owns a home. There is a significant socioeconomic piece, or an economic justice piece in all of this as well, that folks say we have programs for that. It is a very challenging thing to do. We tried for years to get to it. It is nearly impossible. So there are so many layers of wrongness of why we should, reasons why we should not be part of this. For in a broken system, and they're going to look at us as the next bit of low-hanging fruit. They want to get their hands. The utilities. It's a headache for the utilities, in my opinion, right? They're the implementers. They go along. They have to, right? Mm-hmm. They're required to. It's fine. However, I don't think the utility is the one saying go after those municipalities. It's the people who are following the metrics that are saying we need our next low-hanging fruit. There's 41 communities out there that are the low-hanging fruit. Let's go get them. That's what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Let's fight the fight.
Yeah, that's it. And that's the most pressing one. There's a few others. I guess just to echo a point made. I do feel like there is this is, I guess, a perspective of my own, is I do feel like there has to be an awareness of the rate differential between a National Grid next door at 36 cents and us at 13. And we see this rate working group and how to shift. There's a big missing piece between how do we shift rates that are at 36 cents a kilowatt hour where we know we can't just cut them by 67%. It's shifting it around, and I feel like it's it's just a continual issue here that they're trying to figure out how to make that work, because at 36 cents or more per kilowatt hour, electrification is far less attractive in a lot of these, adding in offshore wind, that who knows what those prices are, that type of thing just becomes more and more challenging.
We know what the prices are. They're way more expensive.
And more. So, and then, so then related, just as a maybe perhaps, since I'm on the topic here, things that I don't think necessarily, they're not in that same frame, but things that, just to give you a perspective on other legislation we've weighed in on, there's advanced clean trucks, where it would be in theory, it was supposed to start at the beginning of 2025, where manufacturers of medium and heavy-duty trucks would have to move to electric. And while we are supporting electrification, we just don't have the technology there. So we've been trying to shift ourselves to that advisory role, where it's like, hey, we understand and we're marching towards electrification like everyone else. However, if these vehicles don't exist, plus the fact that our very nature of driving to areas with no electricity as part of storm restorations and mutual aids, probably make that an infeasible thing to do for our industry, at least. And then the other one, just I thought was noteworthy, the large building energy reporting. One of the things, and certainly, I can carry forward any feedback. The other proposal is for large buildings, basically buildings over 20,000 square feet. The state is looking to have the utilities provide the energy information for those buildings. Our position has been for us to circumvent the customer, and providing customer data directly to the state is seemingly a not only administrative burden, but a potential violation of privacy law, where it's not our data to provide. So the feedback I've provided has been, we absolutely, as we will do even today, provide the customer with their own energy information. If you'd like to go get it from the customer, then that's a more,
The state wants that data?
yes,
To do what with?
Good question.
that's unclear. Analyzed.
That's outrageous.
So, so my primary, messaging on that is that's a more appropriate relationship to go to the actual customer themselves and ask for them to report it, like their taxes, as opposed to having us provide someone else's information.
Hey, let's not go adding more information that needs to be reported.
Fair. Fair enough. So those are just, I thought, a few noteworthy. It's been a busy legislative season, and so I thought I'd just provide some insight.
I have a quick question about that big UPS building that
Yeah.
you just, how is that going to affect our load and all?
That is a fairly significant load, but I would, from our perspective, a very beneficial
Is
load.
it going to be Grafton supplying too, or are we both?
It would thus be
It's all Shrewsbury?
all Shrewsbury. That load is nice, both, from a rate-making standpoint, but largely from that area of town. That's ideal for deployment of utility-scale storage. And so right now, there's more proposed storage projects than our substation can handle. So if we can get that additional load onto that substation, that allows us to deploy more storage.
Where are the storage projects?
We have.
What you
one-
can speak of. I'm sure there's.
Yes, no, so we have one proposed at the, now I'm going to forget the addresses. The Centec, we had considered our own, which we subsequently have deferred to the customer-driven projects. So we're looking at pairing one with the existing solar projects on the Polito land.
Cherry.
We have the Cherry Street land. We have the new warehouses on the Route 20 intersection there. And so
Those
we've been.
private
These
development.
are private developers that are working through term sheets with us.
Yeah, great.
And most of those, we are right on the 1 yard line, or, very close to.
In the red zone.
Yes. And I just realized I went to the sports
Yeah, in
analogies.
the red zone.
Well, and back to Tony's question, because they were able to move the building into Shrewsbury, a piece of it, we were allowed to provide the power.
Yes.
Which we sell the power, we make the revenue in providing the electricity. But additionally, on the IT side of the house, we provide the IT, correct?
We can
So
Yep.
it's a win-win for us as far as SELCO goes, as
Very good,
the
yeah.
capacity to be able to do it.
Yep.
Great.
And they save in the analysis we provided, in the initial numbers. I mean, they save just by running the wire to us instead of to Grafton, they save over $3 million a year
Wow.
just on the bottom line, not to mention our reliability numbers and customer satisfaction
And they're taxable.
and the taxes. So,
Sorry to interrupt.
no, that's, so I guess in the interest of time, I'm happy to go through any of these legislative bits here. Just providing some context with everything around the industry. I think in the same theme that we've talked about with, with the rates and this other proposed legislation, I always find it noteworthy to see how our private utility counterparts react to something like the regulatory agencies pushing back on the high rates and then subsequently getting lower credit ratings and then saying, well, I guess all the ratepayers are going to have to bear the cost of the fact that we're too expensive and we don't like people saying no to us. So it's a fascinating time to be in and watch this play out. Smart meters, I put this in here just to prompt myself as a talking point. Connecticut's push for $855 million smart meter plan. So I was just curious, 1.3 million electric customers at 855 million. You're talking $700 or so per customer. And I think, our, you pointed out one of our smart meter invoices on our current warrant. But if you even look at our smart meter deployment project at, say, even 5 million, again, you just see the ratio of efficiencies in the business model. One is, spending $700 a customer to get a smart meter rollout completed. We're more on the order of 200 per customer. So it's just, you see it translate through the entire business model where I think to the Matt's point prior, this is great. Oh, look, 855 million, a big number. They must be doing great things. Or I look at that as how efficient are they actually completing this project. So the other ones I thought I just throw in for reference. I just wanted to throw in, since there's also a hot button topic, there's many, but cybersecurity. So I thought this would be of interest, is just the threats to utility software. And this was a very interesting statistic to me, at least. 25% of software components and 90% of software products in the U.S. contain code from developers in China, which they say is 1.4 times more likely to contain vulnerabilities. So this is something we're mindful of. We have put together as of late, and moving into 2025, we have a cybersecurity plan in place. We continue to monitor it. We have a robust support partner with that. We have 24/7, 365 monitoring in a variety of ways. Still, what sticks with me is, I'm going to say now several, it's probably a number of years ago, I went to the national labs in Colorado, and I was sitting with a bunch of U.S. Air Force hackers, if you will, and they basically said, give us 5 minutes and we'll get in any device on this, in this room. So, we're defending our infrastructure as best we can, mindful of the fact that it's just every day is a new challenge to face. So we have outside support for that, as well as our IT staff, and I just thought that was an interesting statistic for conversation material over the holidays. And then just,
Be sure to bring that one up.
I know, that's what I talk
The
about.
Christmas tree lights go crazy, you know somebody's taking control of your,
Okay, so just moving on to, I think, more exciting news. We had our 3 esteemed apprentices graduate from the NEPA Apprentice Line Worker Program. And so a few of us, including Bob, attended the graduation, and that's always great. They've done an outstanding job. We have a great group altogether, but these 3 have done a great job, and they have great families. It's always nice to meet the families, and so I just wanted to highlight.
that's a long-term commitment. It's a 4-year program where they go, I think, once a month, 10 months out of the year, I think. They have an exam for every one of those sessions, and just the safety training and overall systems knowledge passed down and tribal knowledge that gets handed down to each of these individuals, and then they come back to us as full-up rounds. It's really great. We had 1 or 2 last year, one last year, we had 3 this year. I think we've got 2 or 3 in the pipeline over the next 4 years coming through. It's a great recruiting tool for us as well, because we are very much open to allowing the new linemen to go up there and take these courses. It's a great program.
Then I saw something where you're also going to high school or something to try to get people interested in that. Is that
Yeah, they did some of that. They had an example of those, they had volunteered and gone in to train,
Yeah.
in some of the trade schools. And that's something that we can also look at, is with Shrewsbury now partnering with Leicester
Yeah, right.
to create a
Vocational type thing there, yeah.
vocational thing. We may be able to work that way as well.
That'd be good.
And then as well, to throw a shout out to the cable side, we hired Tyler Wales as a help desk technician. Again, as our primary interface, we're customers in need technologically. It's always good to bolster the ranks there and help folks when they need it most. Let's see, how am I doing now? Okay, so we had, I guess I would jump down to the 2025 scholarship application is now live. So I just wanted to,
There's what, 3 $1,000 scholarships or 2?
yeah.
No, what, we got 3?
Is it, I believe it's,
Val, what are we advertising?
it's 3, yeah.
Okay.
Doubted myself for a second. And so that's out of the communication side. We have the marketing module, I guess just because of tying in with our prior presentation. We're continuing to, keep pace or ahead of the pace, even if we can, with the, customer engagement tools. So just we're adding more and more tools in the toolkit. We're involved in the sustainability committee. So in case anyone hears about that, we're still in the other one, the NLX chargers that we have here at Town Hall and the schools. We continue to monitor that situation as you see here, the Volt E group has acquired the North America operations, but they have not made the transition. So any NLX charger basically across the country is still in a time of transition. I guess there's the support or the report, of our ongoing electric operations activities. You see the crews in the area, that's what's going on. We have a number of customer-driven projects, and in between, we try and continue to chip away at our 5 kV conversion project. Those are the poles you'd see on Crescent Street and surrounding areas. So they're, like I say, we prioritize the customer work first, and then in between we work on our own capital projects. And then just continuing on to the broadband side of things, we've had if you will, a normal SELCO stream month, which is good. Just working out the bugs. We continue to look at other fiber optic providers. where now that we know, some of our fiber routes are congested nationally with respect to singular points of bottlenecks. We've solicited quotes for other providers to look at more diverse paths to help avoid any buffering issues that might happen with either natural disasters or just even a routine dig up that happened multiple states away. So doing that, and then locally we have our monthly report on the progress of fiber, and the weather has helped us kind of stay full steam ahead. It's, what is it, 55 degrees now? So it has extended the construction season, and moving into 2025, we continue on that, I'd say, more southerly part of town and the multi-dwelling units. That's our focus for 2025. And then just our IT information and tickets, and then happy to answer any questions.
So I had a friend who said they've got the fiber, in fact, Orchard Meadows, what Bob is, he was saying how, first he said, we had some problem with Selco. Then afterwards he said, no, I guess we need upgraded modems, or he didn't have the coverage. Is that?
Router.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, yes.
Yeah, because they brought fiber in.
Yeah.
A couple of things down in these areas where we go with multi-dwellings is that a lot of these older places like Orchard Meadows was built in 2002, and as a result, the cable was run through the basements, and then people came in, and a lot of the basements had accesses, and they refinished their basements. Well, Selco does not come in and bore through the new construction of the basements to run new fiber to where they need it. So one of the problems that you have in some of these units is that because of their modifications in their own basements, without a mesh router, which
And that's what he said he got.
right. So we're working to get Selco's coming up with its own mesh router system, but people can go out and get it, which allows it just comes into the basement. It doesn't run through anything. It sets up right there in the basement and goes out throughout the house
That's gonna
to allow
cut
people to get it.
Yeah.
And then so that's what's going on with those. I, on the other hand, bought a house that doesn't have a finished basement. They were able to run the cable, the fiber, directly in parallel with the old cable and hooked me up, and they were there for 45 minutes, and I had all 3 TVs up and running.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of what the situation is each way. But the folks from Selco have been very cooperative, and the people down there have been very happy with the help they've been getting. So, yeah, that's the story down there.
Yeah.
Did I cover everything on that one, I think?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I am a test platform for Joel. I pay my own credit. I'm not getting any deals, but I do have 3 TVs that are all set up with different connectors. One is Evo, and one's with the Fire Stick, and another one's. But so if there's any issues at all, I can see which system is not working and feed that back directly to. So, okay, that's my story.
That occupies your day.
Halfway. Yeah.
Not mine.
Yeah, and then his.
Oh, keeping everybody busy.
And I don't care if he's skiing in the Alps. So that's great. Okay, if that's it for the general highlights, we next on the agenda have an opportunity and a need to go into executive session. And we need to enter into executive session with respect to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, with respect to collective bargaining with IBEW Local 326, or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body and the chair so declares. In order to go into executive session, we need to do a roll call vote. Also, the plan is, tentatively, is to, once we're done with executive session, to come back out of executive session into open session to potentially, what we've discussed in executive session, kind of put the signature on the paper. So with that said, I'd like to do a roll call vote to close to go into executive session, to return to open session today, with the proviso of what was just read, why we're going into executive session. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second?
Okay. Roll call vote, Michael?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Bob, yes. Tony?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Yes, okay. With that, we will go into executive session at 9:11. It's now 9:57 on the 17th of December. We have come out of executive session of the SELCO Commission meeting for the day. And during the executive session, we discussed three topics. One was a vacation leave policy. One was a sick plan for sick plan 4, Plan 4. And the third one was a investment retirement program called 457. 457 program, which we would like to establish for all of our 80 employees for SELCO. We have discussed that, and we just need to come in open session to vote to approve those three articles. So if I could have a motion to accept as presented in executive session, the vacation leave plan, the sick plan, and the 457 memo.
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. Well, with that said, I think our next meeting is going to be January,
I'll get that for you.
28th?
28th.
January 28th. Are we all in concurrence at
Right.
0800 on January 28th?
Yes.
We'll have our next meeting. Okay, with that date set, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, at 9:58. Adjourned.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A reminder, tomorrow is the
Christmas party.
SELCO Christmas party.